Welcome to episode 2 of Memoirs of a Cable Guy. I was actually kind of surprised that my last one actually had people watching it. Okay, great. Hi. So Facebook, the wonderful cesspool that has become, has reminded me of a post I did 10 years ago. They're doing their 10-year thing, what were you like 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And one of them was from a post I did of saying, well, I got mobbed today at a job. Fun. So it reminded me, hey, I should maybe tell that story. So here it is. On a cold and fateful day in February, or January, December, well, I guess if it's 10 years, they would have figured that out. They would have figured that one out, right? I was given a job to do a upgrade, an install, let's say, a internet-only install at some not great apartments, okay? These apartments are basically the Section 8 housing, and unfortunately, in a lot of Section 8 housing, it also attracts some not great people either. So, prefacing that. Now, another quick preface is when I first started at Charter, while I was in training, I was basically kind of put as a subordinate of another guy with a couple other new guys to go rewire this apartment complex. Somehow they got this big state grant or something, whatnot, I don't know. So anyway, I am part of this crew, and we're literally rewiring every single apartment in this massive, 12, well, not 12, but 10 building apartment complex. Okay. And what was supposed to happen is we did not have audit sheets at that point. So we didn't know who was supposed to be hooked up, who was not. And just to basically make things easy, what they were going to do is just say, hey, just tag, label every line, and hook them all up. Make sure there's no noise. Make sure there's no ingress. I'll talk about that in another episode, but make sure the signal's clean, okay? And so we did. We hooked them all up, and what was supposed to happen is management was supposed to send an auditor out to disconnect anyone who was not supposed to have service. Now, this was in the days when there was a mix of analog and digital. So this was the days when you could just plug your TV in and you would get signal. So stealing cable was very easy. So they were hooked up. It's totally Charter's fault, by the way. And we did that job for about a month, maybe a little 6 weeks. It took us to do that place. And man, there's other stories just from that day. Well, just from that 6 weeks, but we'll do that one later. So one night I was out to go install internet. So I go out there, and as what my job was, okay, if I recognize that there's someone who has a service that is not supposed to on my line, the customer's line that I am scheduled to go out to, I am to make sure that service is corrected, that they are getting the right service they are or are not supposed to have. And at every box that I personally go to, I am to also make sure that anyone I'm supposed to call my dispatcher and audit that tap, that particular box that usually would have maybe 4 to 8 apartments attached to it, okay? So I do my job. I go inside, I say, hey, you're supposed to get internet service. Looks like you're getting Wi-Fi. Like, yep, that sounds right. So I go back outside, and I basically see it's okay, these lines here they're still not supposed to be hooked up. And there's a tagging system back in the day where you had a white tag for address labeling, and a green tag for active line service, and a red tag if the service has been disconnected. And if there is not a green or a white tag, a green or a red tag, and only a label tag, I am supposed to call in to see if they're supposed to have service. Okay, so I did that, and I saw that the customer I had, just from the work order I had in my phone, was they were internet only. So I trap out the TV service and audit that tap and say, all right. So I disconnected pretty much everyone but one other person on that tap, and I think it was a 8 apartment tap. So that tap, there was only 2 customers who were supposed to have active service. One I left fully hooked up, the other one I trapped out, which was my customer that day. I go back inside and say, yep, I got your internet, and install the modem, install the router, set up their Wi-Fi, get their computers and game systems on. And I was like, yep, we're all set. We got your internet going. And the person in there says, hey, my TV service isn't working. It's like, well, you're not supposed to have TV service. It's like, yes, I am. I always have TV service. Like I've always had it. It's like, oh, great. This was one of the ones that we hooked up 5 years ago. At that point, 5 years prior to during the install, no one came out and audited. It's like, so I basically was like, okay, I know what's going on. So I basically tell customers like, yep, unfortunately, probably the last I lied. I said probably the last person who was here, their service was not disconnected. I apologize for that. Unfortunately, like I cannot have you hooked up with service, and then she responded with, well, the apartments, they're the ones who pay for this service. I'm like, no, the apartments do not pay for the service. They do not do a bulk account with us. Every apartment is their individual complete service line. So I could tell she's getting mad. I mean, I can kind of understand it, but part of me is like, you've gotten free TV service for this long. Be grateful that you had it, and be grateful there's no charges being pressed, because technically under laws, like whatever devices that are technically hooked up to illegal cable service can be actually confiscated by the provider. People don't know that because it's not practiced. Sometimes I think some examples should have been done to show us, hey, this is what can happen if you steal cable. That TV that you have got, can be taken away by the cable company. But that would probably go bad too. Anyway, so this person ends up informing me. It's like, well, everyone in the building has service. And I was like, you did not just say that. I already knew the people at my tap did not have service, and I disconnected them. But now she just informed me that this entire building has illegal service. And she is feeling like there's an equity problem here, that they're now getting something that she is not getting. Yeah. And this is like 10 years ago, and I'm getting worked up again. So I go outside. Now, mind you, now it's like 7 o'clock in like this November, December. So it's starting to it's getting dark at this point. And I go through all 4 taps of the building, audit basically all 32 addresses. Yeah. Add math right. Well, I already did the other 8 first, so I had 24. No, math wrong. Math, right, wrong. Math. Anyway, I go back inside, get the person to sign the work order, and she's all happy. I'm like, okay. It's like I would say, like, if you want service, just give us a call. We'll come back out and we'll set you back up, and this time you'll actually get more channels and stuff. And just say, oh, okay, this is great. The moment I leave her apartment door to go into a hallway, because all the apartments are connected by a hallway, I am greeted by about 20 to 30 angry people. They were not there when I went into the apartment. They were there out, and she was all happy, and the door was locked behind me. Oh, shit. People are screaming, you disconnected my cable. You disconnected my cable. You're racist. You this, you that. It's like, I don't even know what the hell are you talking about? You guys aren't supposed to have TV service, but I know, like, if I'm going to fight, I can't, like, say that. I got 20 to 30 people in a hallway on both sides of the hallway. So I'm grabbing, I have my meter bag. I got my tool belt on me. I'm reaching into my tool belt to grab, like, my big screwdriver as, like, a potential weapon to protect myself. And I'm kind of trying to just walk through them. It's like, you called charter. You called charter. You called charter. And, like, my heart is racing. I am freaking out, but trying to keep calm because I know, like, any false move and they're going to beat the hell out of me. This is angry people, okay? This is an angry mob. Mob mentality is not reasonable. And they amplify off each other. I know this. I'm keeping going through. I'm working my way down the stairs. They're still following me. They're pushing me. Making contact. I'm like just kind of like just getting through. I get outside to get my van. Some of them stayed in. There are a few of them who are waiting at my van, my charter van. And I basically just shove my way through the person who's screaming at me. I'm not even know what they're saying. I got two people there screaming at me. I got about still a dozen people who were following me outside after leaving the apartment building. And I get in my van. I floor it out of there. One person tried to get in front of me. All right. I swerved to avoid them, but it could have gone another way. So I'm on an adrenaline hike. I call dispatch. I call my supervisor. My supervisor, of course, he's already home because he's a jerk. He's like, oh, well, I guess you shouldn't have disconnected them. I'm like, hey, what is it you tell us to do at our weekly meetings? You tell us to audit taps when we're there. And if you tell us that if we are made aware of someone who has illegal service, that we are supposed to audit them at that moment. But they like to backpedal. They like to, it's like, well, yeah, I guess that is the policy, but you should have had like some better judgment to know, like, okay, you know what? Fine. I'm not going to do my job then that's in my job description to do, and you better not tell me like that I'm wrong for not auditing, because that's a write-upable offense, and you're telling me not to do it. But you're not going to back me when things go sour. So they stay over the next few weeks, as I would typically get a job or two a week over at this apartment complex. I would then proceed to basically just tell dispatch, nope, I'm not going back there. I do not feel safe. People are going to remember me. And whether they do or not, I don't know. And I basically just kind of kept an eye on the jobs. And I did see over the next 3 weeks, there were a lot of installs in that building. I brought it up to my supervisor saying, hey, there's a lot of installs in this building that I audited. When are you going to go audit the rest of the buildings? He didn't have an answer. So outside, so there's my story of kind of being mobbed. Not kind of. I'm incredibly grateful that, like, I did not get beaten, because there was pushing, there was shoving, there was screaming in my face, like people getting right here over cable TV, over TV service. You know, one of the things I realized that day, beyond anything else, like it really hit me. Like I knew this, but I didn't realize it to this depth. In that particular community type, there is nothing more valuable than TV service. Nothing. And they will steal it. They will put it in their kids' names. They'll put it in their pets' names. They'll put it in their mom's names. They will make false businesses to get this service and not have to pay for it. Ugh. 10 years ago, and I'm all worked up again. It's like reliving it. It's like playing back in my head. So, I know a lot of people did not like when the cable companies went all digital. I was ecstatic. I was incredibly overjoyed when the appearance of disconnect that was not related to the tech, because it was shut off at the head end. And if unless you had a cable box that was on an active account, service would not work. Now you had people who tried to do some kind of stealing of it, basically running lines from one apartment to another and that kind of stuff. But man, that got rid of basically 99.999% of all illegal cable service. And then when I was physically disconnecting the lines from the tap, which we still were doing, primarily because if you had another service hook up, they could feed their signal back into the main and interfere with things or whatever, kind of on that. So all that to say is, yeah, that was a fun experience. Not really. I can look back and I can say, man, I learned a lot. Well, that's episode 2 of the Cable Guy Memoirs. I'm Jeff Jones.